This is Inside the UCC Group Leadership in Action podcast with your hosts Laura Butler and Jay Maymi. This podcast will share groundbreaking initiatives by the university and speak with leading educators, business leaders, and entrepreneurs that are paving the way for growth, transformation, and success.
Welcome to the UCC Leadership in Action podcast. I'm Laura Butler.
And I'm Jay Maymi, and we are your co-hosts for today's second show of the UCC Leadership Podcast. And Laura, I'm really excited about today. We've got a fantastic guest that is really following up our prior two guests from our first episode, which can be heard as an archive at all the platforms which we'll share later. But today is an extraordinary day because we have a fantastic guest joining our show.
We certainly do. I'm excited to have her.
We're going to be speaking with Dr. Marlene Forrest. She's the managing director of the Jamaica Stock Exchange. She's going to share with us her professional journey and really invaluable information, Laura. I'm excited about that.
Absolutely, Jay. And Dr. Forrest is also the director of both its subsidiaries. She has a wealth of experience having worked in senior management positions at varying private and public sector organizations in Jamaica and abroad.
And it's under her stewardship that the Jamaica Stock Exchange became demutualized and the US denominated market and the junior market were launched. She was also awarded the honorary doctorate degree in public policy by UCC.
Dr. Forrest, thanks again for joining us. It's really a pleasure to have you here.
It's great to join you both. Thank you for having me.
Great. My first question is, as you know, UCC wants to educate young people on the disciplines of savings and investing in their future. With your vast experience, what would you say are the three critical disciplines for young adults to begin practicing?
The first thing young adults need to do is have an understanding of the market. So the discipline is that of reading and comprehending. Next thing is that young people should ask questions, listen and ask about the market, ask others who have been there, have done it, and to get an idea as to how they can emulate. Then there is patience. The market is long-term, so you have to understand that you don't go in and just come out, but you have patience as the companies, you grow with them. And finally, goal setting. Many young people do not have money right away, but if you set your priorities right, you will have that money to invest in the market.
Yes, totally agree there. And as you said, it's important to have a proper understanding of it and asking questions and even seeking out a mentor, somebody who has a vast experience in the field to take you through the steps to make sure that you make good informed decisions.
That's correct.
All right. What are the benefits for new companies thinking about listing on the Jamaica Stock Exchange?
Capital is king, and many new companies do not have the adequate capital to do what they want to do in terms of expansion, in terms of innovation, in terms of carrying the inventory. And so when a company lists on the exchange, they get that. And also there is the matter of corporate governance, because you have to report into shareholders. It forces companies to be more proactive in terms of their corporate governance standards. And what they find, although it seemed initially as a hurdle, they find that it pays great dividends.
Dr. Forrest, one of the things you said that really struck a chord with me as you started to, as you gave your answer prior, was not only when dealing with young individuals, educating them about goals, but also the importance of patience. But I like what you said, that it is critical for them to become informed. And sometimes if you don't have all three things, if you're not informed or seeking the information, like Laura said, also mentorship, because that's another resource where you could learn or tap into learning, but also having a long-term commitment, understanding that patience is the big play, but then you have to have goals. If you don't have those three things, as someone myself who's very familiar with financial work, that resonated with me because that is a message that I often share with young people. So I appreciate you bringing that to light. But as I mentioned, because I'm familiar with the financial industry and my career here in the US, I know that we have a regulatory body here in the US called the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission, that oversees security exchanges, securities, broker dealers, investment firms, mutual fund companies, and so on. What is the equivalent of the United States SEC that exists in Jamaica to provide regulatory oversight for these institutions?
We have a well-functioning Financial Services Commission. That's what it is called in Jamaica. And it does everything that you have outlined as it relates to the US SEC. It also regulates the Jamaica Stock Exchange itself. And within the Jamaica Stock Exchange, the first call is what we call the Regulatory and Market Oversight Division. And that division, internally, we regulate the brokers, the listed companies, and also we look at complaints from investors and going to regulate, market manipulation and surveying the market. So the framework is good, and also the fact that we actually do active regulation is even more important to sustain our market.
Well, the active regulation is critical because, as you and I both know, is when there is a passive approach to oversight and regulation, that's when what I like to call shenanigans. That's when shenanigans can occur. Could you agree to that?
Most certainly. And when individuals know that you are active, it's important. They can see the results of what you are doing.
That's right. Well, in the US right now, our stock market, as you know, it's at its highest levels ever. At least I've been in the industry 30 years and I've never seen it as high. It's as high as it's ever been. But when there is a correction or even a crash, my question is, in your opinion, how close is this Jamaica stock market to those outside influences? And how did they fare in the past, let's say in 2008?
Well, there is some amount of correlation, but the fact is, if we look at 2008, because of our active regulation and the regulatory requirements, especially in the banking system, which is not regulated by the Financial Services Commission, but by the Bank of Jamaica, what we found is that many of the risks that you would believe would have happened did not happen. But the Bank of Jamaica did have windows open that in the event that brokers or financial institution needed to be shored up, that could have happened. But we were spared because of our regulatory system, or tight regulatory system.
Excellent. Excellent. I appreciate the answers there, Dr. Forrest.
And Dr. Forrest, that is so important, having these systems in place to monitor and protect all shareholders. What would the process be for a company that wants to, list on the JSE?
If a company wants to list on the JSE, there are a number of things that they need to do. One, it starts with a company having a message to tell. So it is their business plan. Their business plan, along with the prospectus, must be prepared. Now, usually this is prepared between the broker and the attorney, the prospectus being a legal document. So that happens before. They would have to get that prospectus approved by the Companies Office of Jamaica. And as it relates to the Financial Services Commission, they review it as well, and there is a no objection. Having received the approval and non-objection, they would apply to list. They can apply to list on the exchange. there are certain requirements that are detailed. The number of the amount of float that must be in the market, 20% in the hands of 100 shareholders, the fact that the company is registered in Jamaica, areas like that there's no call on the securities. And they put in place an application for a junior market company. They would also have to have usually a mentor. So these are some of the requirements. There's a detail on that on the Jamaica Stock Exchange's website, which really outlines all the other things. They have to have a broker as well.
Excellent, because this is a lot of information, and at least
Yes.
they can get the information. Everything is there that they will need to guide them through the process. Dr. Street Forrest, with the interest rates in a lowering trend in Jamaica, the US and Europe, do you think people will continue to invest in the stock market as opposed to treasury bills or other government instruments?
While the interest rate has inched up slightly, the fact is that investors look at the best return. And as it is now, despite the fact that we are going through COVID, what we have seen with the re-energizing of many of the companies on the market, that investors are still looking to the stock market, because I think they appreciate that this is long-term, and in the long term, and it's indisputable, the return on investing in the stock market is better than investing in any other form of investment. So, and the flexibility to go in and out of the market. So yes, people will still gravitate to the market, despite the fact that, and as a result of the fact that interest rate is trending.
I have a question, Dr. Forrest, because we've been talking about the Jamaican Stock Exchange, but I know that there is the Junior Stock Exchange that exists as well. And before I ask you the question about that, as it pertains to sort of a rebounding coming out of a pandemic, I think it's important, though, for our listeners to first become familiar with exactly what the Junior Stock Exchange is. So could you expand on that for us first?
Okay, so we have one stock exchange, but several markets. So we have the main market, and we have the junior market, and we have two other markets, the US denominated, etc. But the junior market was specifically designed to help small and medium-sized companies to get. So they can raise between US 350,000 to 3.5 million in US dollar as the band. Now, the companies must have 20% of their shares in the hands of 100 shareholders, and also they must come to market via what is called an initial public offering. They need to have a mentor, and the mentor is really there to facilitate and assist them with good corporate governance. The idea for this market is this, that one of the principal advantage is the taxation. The junior market companies pay no corporate tax for a period of 10 years. 5 years when they pay none at all, and the other 5 years where they pay 50% of the applicable corporate tax. And this is very, very good, because what it does, it frees them up to continue to plow back the money into the business for growth and development. They have been doing that. They have been providing a good return in terms of dividend for shareholders, and they have been growing. And so what we do, we encourage more and more companies, because of the handholding, because of the various concessions that they get, to take advantage of this market.
What I like about this formula and what you are doing for this segment of business owners, I think it's wonderful, because it is encouraging, it is empowering, it is fostering growth. And it's those small business minded individuals that sometimes are the ones that I have seen are overlooked, But with this wonderful system you have with the Junior Stocks Exchange, it's not overlooking the small business individuals and small companies. It's getting behind them and pushing them up. So I appreciate that, and that's refreshing to hear. But in your opinion, then, what particular divisions of business would you expect to be launching on the Junior Stock Exchange in the near future, especially, as I mentioned earlier, coming out of a pandemic?
So we are expecting that the companies that will be coming to us for listing, and that we have sight of because we have been speaking to them, they are in the health sector, in the distribution sector, the manufacturing sector. Actually, right now there is, they're put together meetings so that we can discuss with the manufacturers. And so I'm expecting that they will be coming, and also technology. So those 4 areas are strong possibilities. And while in COVID, there's a lull because they're getting themselves back. COVID shifted many persons off their feet. They're still indicated to us that they will be coming to market to raise capital.
Excellent. That's very good to hear, Dr. Street Forrest. So what are the goals for the Jamaica Stock Exchange over the next 5 years? So it's a 2-part question. And the second question is, what are plans in place to educate Jamaicans, both here and abroad, as well as international investors, to invest in Jamaican companies? Because we know that's so important.
Okay, so as you probably have seen as it relates to our growth, while primarily, and we started as a stock exchange, we don't see ourselves just as a stock exchange. We see the group as one of delivering financial services, the back-end financial services to all of the various players in the market. So obviously, we are seeing growth in the areas of trustee services. We are seeing growth. We are looking on the private market, which we launched actually in January of this year, or 2021. We are also looking to double our efforts, though there is growth, significant growth in communication. We will be focusing on data dissemination and data sales. We are also obviously looking at the digital space, and pretty soon you should be hearing more about how we embark into that market, because it is important that we not only look at delivering on a centralized operation, but decentralized, which the digital space allows. So there are quite a number of exciting products and services in the pipeline.
It certainly sounds that way, Dr. Street Forrest. And that would tie in with further, increasing awareness and informing the public as to what's happening and what they can do.
Most definitely.
Sir, in our last minute here, Dr. Forrest, I always ask individuals that I interview to give us a parting shot, sort of a last minute nugget of wisdom. What golden nugget of wisdom can Dr. Forrest leave with our listeners as we wrap up this episode?
I think one of the things that I would want to express is this: every single person can benefit from the market in some way. And as a result, everyone. And as a result of that, wealth creation and intergenerational wealth is something that we must strive to achieve, and we must start early. And that is my message. Start early, understand the market, get into it. But the important thing is to start.
Well, I appreciate those words of wisdom. It sounds like you and I are on the same page. It's been an absolute treat and a joy to have you on the show today. Laura, would you agree to that?
I totally agree. And Dr. Forrest, this has been valuable information. Thank you so much for sharing your wealth of knowledge and your experience. And we do look forward to having you on the show again. I do hope we can get that commitment. Yes?
Yes, and it was certainly a pleasure to be here today.
It was great to have you.
Laura, there's no question why Dr. Forrest is at the level that she is at currently. Her knowledge and wisdom and experience is obvious. And boy, it was a treat to have her on the show today. And we both, I know, wish her continued success.
Yes, Jay, and I have no doubt that the JSC will continue to do exceptionally well under her leadership. I'm also looking forward to our next guest, Arnold Brown, the Deputy CEO of Remax Elite. I'm sure it will be informative, especially as UCC Group is expanding its real estate presence in Jamaica. So that's going to be great.
Well, Laura, as we wrap up here, I want to remind our listeners that they can listen to this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Deezer, iHeartRadio, Castbox, Podchaser, and of course, ucc.edu.jm.
Thank you all for listening. Keep safe and focused. Until next time, I'm Laura Butler.
And I'm Jay Maymi, your co-host for the UCC Group Leadership in Action podcast.